Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for the third installment of CoveritLive University today. My name is Spencer Kitley. I'm the event specialist here at CoveritLive. We appreciate you joining us for today's webinar, and we look forward to sharing some important tips with you on ad integration and monetizing your CoveritLive events. Before we get started, I want to give a quick overview of the format of today's CIL University. We expect this webinar to last 20 to 30 minutes. As a conclusion, we'll take questions, which can be sent in via the WebEx client chat window. Additionally, if you have questions during the presentation, we've set up some CoveritLive chats. There's a standard link and a link into a Facebook chat that were included with your WebEx invite, so feel free to shoot us questions there as they come up. Tomorrow we'll post this webinar in the archive section on CoveritLive University tab on CoveritLive.com. So if you or any of your colleagues want to revisit this, you can go there for that. But now I'd like to introduce today's host, the General Manager of CoveritLive, Ben Schneider.
Thanks, Spencer. And thanks everyone for joining. I really appreciate taking the time to learn some more about what we've done in CoveritLive, both features as well as things that have been in the product for a while but can help you in monetizing, getting ad partnerships, branded sponsorships, whatever it may be, or even just building a more branded CoveritLive experience for your events. As Spencer mentioned, we're going to take about 20 to 30 minutes and we cover a number of topics, and for those of you who may have joined us for our SEO webinar last month, we're going to take a similar approach. So we're going to start with some of the simplest best practices and recommendations, and then we will get into things that are more advanced and some of our features that are available in a custom implementation. With that, we want to make sure that even some of the simplest and most easy-to-use features that can also be used for branding or for advertising, that you make sure you're aware of those and things that you have access to now, as well as some of the things that we've built explicitly targeted for advertising use. So with that, we'll start with how you work your host pages, some of the different things that you can do with customization and configuration of your template, manual ad options that you have, including using the media library and the newsflash areas for sponsorships and advertising, onto more complex topics like being able to leverage the API and show you a few examples of each of these, as well as our pre-roll feature that allows you to put display, video, advertising, or any sort of pre-roll introduction that you want in front of your live events. And then lastly, we'll close out with channel pages and custom templates and some other alternative ways to do different types of monetization. So jumping right in, one of the key things to always remember is in a traditional CoveritLive implementation, when you're dropping the iframe inside of your article page, that article page is still one of the best places for you to get any sort of monetization, and most of you already do that. But a couple of key things to call out about that. One is, a lot of times what we've seen with a lot of our events is when our customers are dropping them into their article pages, they're just doing their standard advertising, their standard display, or maybe performance advertising, AdSense, PPC, whatever it may be. And those are great, but with an event like CoveritLive, most of the time on average, we see that users spend 30 to 40 minutes staying on that page for any event. So it's really advised that you should oftentimes brand and look for sponsorships targeted specifically for that event. And make sure that your CoveritLive page that you're using to host the event speaks to that and has a good example of that sort of branding. Whenever you have users there for a long duration, it's also great to have dynamic advertising, so it's not just static, and that you're getting additional ad content being input into the page the entire time the user's there. A couple of examples of this, Crack.com did a great job in partnership with Old Spice, showing off their CoveritLive event where they were covering the draft, and they took it with a humorous take as opposed to some of the more traditional takes from a lot of our sports partners. But they had a running commentary that was with a humorous tone around the draft and doing analysis, but also meant with a lot of joking, a lot of candor, and also very targeted for what the crack community likes. And they did a great job with this and also branded Old Spice into the title page, which I'll get to in just a second. A couple of other great examples of this, Macworld, during the most recent iPhone 5 announcement, had great branding around their page where they were hosting their live blog covering the Apple News event and announcement, as well as the Patriots pregame chat sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts. So, again, all of these are not necessarily features in the tool that you have to use to make anything special or to have a really great monetized experience. These are all things that you can do on the page where CoveritLive is the focal point and where the chat is the focal point, but the page control and all the actual branding and advertising come out of your host page. So, it should be obvious, but in many cases, always want to start with the basics and make sure that you're leveraging the page that your event is running in to the maximum for branding and for sponsorships, and targeting that around what you're doing with your events. Kind of going into the next area, we'll talk about template configuration and just making sure that everyone's aware of some of the configuration options you have around customizing even a standard CoveritLive event. The two main ones we'll talk about are the title page logo and the footer logo that's included inside of the CoveritLive viewer window. So in each of these cases, whether you want to brand it with your own brand that's very distinct and match it to your site, or whether you have a sponsorship opportunity or the combination of both, the title page, whenever you're using that, or the veil as we often refer to it, is that page that covers up the event that somebody has to click on before they can see live content. Now you can turn that setting off, so you may not be running your event to the title page, but if you do, it's a great opportunity because you can customize that logo, and it's a great opportunity for you to work in sponsorship or even just branding for your own brand right there on your event, in addition to whatever else is going on your page. Second to that is the footer image, which is the secondary image that's included in the footer of the CoveritLive template. And that's also a great opportunity because that shows up regardless of whether you're using a title page or not, and it's also persistent throughout the entire event. You can see a few examples of that here. Another opportunity that kind of blends these two together with TNT and the NBA did a great job where they did two different things. They had one case where they were using CoveritLive to keep up the team Twitter list and commentary, but on the other hand, they also had a sponsored specific chat where American Express was the sponsor, and that was linked to from their Game Pass page while the games were in progress, and you can see that that was branded both with TNT branding as well as with American Express in the context of the event. I'll take a quick opportunity just to make sure everyone's aware of where these settings are inside the system. So I've already logged in to CoveritLive, and I'm now looking at I've come in and hit my account page, my dashboard page. And so from here, if I want to go and alter these settings, these are things that I can do at a template level and then use that as a template for all future events. You can also create multiple templates if you have different types and different series of events and you may want different look and feel or different branding around those. To get into the template settings and where you can change the footer and title page settings, click on Appearance and Settings under Extras. Now from here, you'll see where you can set up your templates and also as well as what your default settings are for the default CoveritLive template. So from here I can see any templates that I've created as well as the CoveritLive standard. I can see what images are being used, and these cases are all the defaults, and I can also have the opportunity to change these. Now additionally, I'm able to create a new template because maybe the events that I'm running, maybe it's for the election, and I have a certain brand partner or a certain advertising partner that I'm going to use to sponsor our election chats. And so I'm going to have a specific template and settings around that, and I may reuse those in the future, but it's distinct from previous events. So in that case, I click Add a New Template, and we'll give this the name Election Layout just for an example. And then here is where I can change the main image. And this could be the image that shows up inside of that title page whenever you're using the title page with the veil, before the users click to get live events, or also before the event is started and whenever they can sign up to receive a reminder and be notified and reminded whenever the event's coming up later. So that will change that image to whatever I've supplied, and then I can also do the same thing for a secondary image. I'm actually going to switch these real quick. So the secondary image is what shows up in a small area down in the footer of the CoveritLive viewer window. And again, that's branding that you can change at any time, or you can have it placed at a template level. And this is also where you can adjust some of the other settings if you wanted to match that branding or just match your site better, including font, background colors, etc. I'll also come back here later because one of the things we're going to talk about is the pre-roll advertising capability, and that can also be either an event-specific setting or set at a template level. And I'll show an example of that in just a little bit. So now I've created my new layout, my new election layout, and it will say these particular settings with my ads and with my images that I've put for both the title page as well as the footer image. So now, moving ahead and jumping into some of the other ways that you can use CoveritLive for monetization. We'll talk a little bit about manual ad integration. Here we'll focus on two different things that you can do. One is very easy and just a natural extension of whatever you're doing in your CoveritLive event, and that's including inline content, inline advertising as a part of your content stream within CoveritLive. Using a media library, we've made this very easy so that way you can have advertising, whether it's image or video or just text and links, all pre-configured and pre-set up, and then at the time that you want to inject that into the content stream of your event, you can just double-click it and do that. And I'll show you an example. The other thing I'll show you real quick is a way to use the newsflash area as advertising. Many of our customers use this area and know about it for putting in general updates or maybe an overview of the event or specific key items that have come out of the chat that they want to call out and have persistent. But it's also a great area for you to put advertising and sponsorship. And this is the area, this will show up as an example here for Fantasy Surfer. It shows up in the same area that polls and other content and scoreboards if you're using those for covering sporting events. It shows up in that same area and it will rotate through in the groups with those. All right, let me jump over and show a quick example. So now I'm going to jump into my demo ticker event that I currently have running. And we can see it over here. I put it in just a very blank page so we can see the most basic stuff going on. But here is my demo ticker. Now I'm going to go in and open my console like I'm running my event. And the first example I'll show, to make sure everyone is aware, is around just dropping in media content or ad content from the media library. So I've gone in and I've already added a couple of ad images into my media library through the admin area of CoveritLive in my account area. And so under the media library, there's a section for advertisements, and I've got my Acme images there. So at any point in the event, whenever I'm ready to drop in that content and actually include that, I can do that just by double-clicking, just as if I would an image or any sort of other content. And now I've got just a simple branded advertisement that's put in the content stream. Now, of course, like I said, this could be text. It could be image, it could be a video, it could be any of the different types of content that are supported in CoveritLive. It's just another piece of content. But the key thing to remember is that your content can be advertising and can be monetizable, whether that's through some sort of branding or whether that's through explicit advertising that you're putting in the content stream. The nice opportunity about this feature is if you're covering an event where maybe there's gaps and pauses, like a sporting event or something like that, it gives you the opportunity to control when you want to put that in and whenever you know it won't disrupt the actual coverage of a live event. Now, similarly, I can also put in a news flash. So if I want to have something constantly rotating, and whether that's because I want to inject it at a certain time or I want it persistent throughout the event, the news flash is also a great way to do this. So I'm going to add a new news flash here. I'm not going to put an actual headline. And again, this can be text content or it can be HTML. And I've actually made a little HTML snippet to include inside of my news flash. So I'm going to paste this in, and this includes an image and a link. And then once I publish that, it shows up right here in the area where the polls and scoreboards and other content in the news flash typically shows up. So now, my advertisement will be persistent there. It's also got a link that opens a new window, still leaves my regular CoveritLive window going, and provides me the opportunity to add another layer of monetization. So whether it's the host page, whether it's in-stream content, whether I'm leveraging the news flash as an area to do that, those are all great options. They're very simple, very quick and easy to do, and available to all of our customers now, and can be used in conjunction with each other to really build up the monetization opportunities for the event. So now we'll jump into some of the more advanced options we have. And the first one is to talk about is leveraging the API. So the API is essentially a way to access all of the CoveritLive functionality, both adding content as well as pulling content out through a developer interface. And the CoveritLive API is available to all of our customers, regardless of what plan you're on, and can be used to do monetization in a couple of different ways. One is that you can use it to inject content in an automated fashion. And that content could be advertisement, it could be text, image, video, much like I showed with the manual insertion. You can use the API to do that programmatically or from a third party. And the other way that you can use the API is to build a completely custom experience. And whether that's inside of a native application that runs on mobile or tablet, or in just a very customized web experience, you can then integrate CoveritLive in unique and special ways and present a specialized experience that's targeted around how you want to brand or potentially monetize the event. An example here is with ESPN's GameCast. CoveritLive is on the right-hand side and part of the Game Day Live portion under their GameCast. And obviously that's not a standard CoveritLive window. It looks very different. They're using the API to bring in that content and include that as a part of their GameCast, which oftentimes is sponsored by different sponsors, including State Farm and others. Similarly, just last week for the first presidential debate, Yahoo News did a very customized implementation using the API to include CoveritLive and the entire chat event on their homepage for the election. And it's got a very unique presentation, and it's also got their own branding and advertising around that to promote Yahoo and the ABC News. So those are two great examples of how you can use the API in either a custom web experience or something that's put into potentially a native mobile application or a native tablet application or even just a mobile web optimized experience that you may be monetizing independently, whether that's through advertising or through app sales or any number of different ways. Build is also a good example for using the API programmatically to insert content into the event. So in addition to the panelists and producers who were running the event and adding their own content and commentary when they were covering the Euro Cup this summer, Build also partnered with a third-party provider who inserted automatic play-by-play information into the event and brought that content in using the API. The cool thing about that feature is in their case it was just specifically about adding content, but that content could have been sponsored. It could have had additional information indicating who had provided that. And in their case, that content did look different, and they did make it a slightly different color, so it was obvious where that was coming from. But that also could be used very easily as a monetization opportunity for you to ingest either rich media, display, video, or even text content that's brought to the event by a sponsor or partner. Now, the next area we'll look at is pre-roll advertising, and this is a new feature we added a few months back. If you've been on our first webinar series a couple of months ago, we talked about this feature and showed an example of it. And this feature is available only for our custom subscriptions, so those who are into annual contracts and who have signed up beyond month-to-month auto-renew. And so if you're currently a monthly subscriber using the self-serve part of the website, thank you very much for being a customer. And while this feature is not currently available to you, if it's something of interest to you, please reach out to us and we can talk to you about what's involved in potentially getting onto that plan. But for all those who are custom subscription customers, this is available to you and is a feature that you can use today. And what this allows you to do is put any sort of advertising in front of the live stream experience when the user clicks for live updates. So if you are using a title page, whenever they click or mouse over to start getting the live streaming content, once the title page goes away and before those streaming content starts, they'll see whatever pre-roll content you've configured. Or if you're not using a title page, whenever the user sees that last few entries of the live update or the live blog or chat, whenever they click the button to start getting live streaming updates, it'll be triggered at that time. So in either way, before they can get streaming content, they will see this pre-roll advertising or pre-roll content that you've put in place. Now, this supports all different types of content. It can be a video, it can be display or rich media. It can also just be an introduction or a bumper or even just text content that you want to display for a few seconds. It's a great example, and you also have the option to configure closing that. And I'll walk through an example in just a moment. Also of note around this, it can be configured on a per event level and just copy and paste it into each event, or it can be one of those template settings as I mentioned earlier. And you've seen a couple examples here with golf.com as well as with ESPN using this to do pre-roll advertising before their PGA Golf Championship coverage inside of their dashboard, including CoveritLive. Now I'll show a few examples of this live, and then I'll actually show you how to set it up as well. So first we'll jump into the ESPN example I just mentioned. And since it is over WebEx, it may be a little bit choppy for some of you to see, but obviously the importance isn't necessarily the content of the video in this context, but to see that pre-roll video does display first, and that shows up before any of the live event content, and then once that's over, the user can jump right in and see the full content of the CoveritLive event. Similarly, Entertainment Weekly did something similar whenever they ran their Oscar coverage earlier this year, and CoveritLive was a part of the full dashboard experience. So in this case, a pre-roll advertising would run here. They actually set a cookie, so if the user left and came back, they wouldn't see it a second time. But it would display, similar to the ESPN example, over their live blog coverage for the Oscars. So these are two great examples of being able to use that feature, and there are likely others, and it's something you should take advantage of, even if it's just for branding your own site better and providing an introduction to maybe the series that you're doing with CoveritLive or the type of events that you're running. Now I'll jump in and show how you can configure this. I'm going to return to our demo just to show you how this looks right now. So I don't have any pre-roll advertising configured. And I can go into my event, and whether I'm creating it new or even editing the event that's currently already set up, if I scroll down into the event setup, there is an area for custom ads. And what I do right here is I add a simple ad code that just points to an iframe that can be hosted on your system that pulls in whatever content it is that you want to run. So a very simple iframe indicating width and height that I want configured. And this page is actually hosted on my server, and it has some basic information around some JavaScript queues that we have information about in our support area of our site that tells you how we know whenever the video is to start or whenever it's to end it or whatever the content may be, as well as including the actual content itself. So you create this page on your system. Make sure it has those cues in it as indicated in our help content. And then you host that page, and then you include an iframe of that page pasted into the code set up for the event. So it's very simple. Once you have it configured, you can continue to reuse that page for your event. Again, have it saved part of your templates, so that way it's always a default in any of your events moving forward. And you have the option to indicate a close button. So if you allow them to skip or close out the ad before going to the event, you can do that depending upon what you want the user experience. All right, now that I've saved that, whenever I click into my event, the event started to stream content whenever I clicked into it, but I get my nice little bit of pre-roll advertising, which in our case is just an animated version of the CoveritLive logo. To give you an example, and once this is done rolling, it'll go away and I'm right back into my full CoveritLive content. So again, that's a great way because you know that your users have to click in to get live content. You know how many of those users are viewing the event and how many are clicking into the live stream to follow along. And it's a great opportunity for monetization and for branding of your events. So the last couple areas we'll talk about are things that aren't always thought about in the traditional monetization sense, but want to make sure that you consider them that way as well. And for those of you who have been on either of the first two webinar series, you've heard about our channel pages, which is one of our most recent features that we added in the last month. And these are essentially hosted by CoveritLive, but they're co-branded to match your site. You can control the template look and feel and easily update that. We'll also automatically update it. You point us to a URL, and then we pick up that content and make sure that that page looks like your site and matches your site, navigation, advertising, analytics tracking, and any other tags that you've included in the template. But we host the page, and we deliver all the CoveritLive event content into the page server side so it can be accessed by search engines. So obviously that adds SEO value to your content, but also it gives you the opportunity to distinctly brand and advertise around your CoveritLive event separate from everything else that you do on your site. You can drive users to a specific URL. You can change the template of that independent from anything else on your site and have it be custom but still co-branded under your domain and still matching the look and feel that you want it to for the event. As well as putting all of your tracking and analytics. So in addition to your typical standard advertising that can always be included here, you can do special things for your channel page that are distinct and targeted around the CoveritLive event coverage that you're doing for any particular event, and have that be distinguished from the rest of your site. You have control over it from the rest of your site, so you don't have to go necessarily through your IT department or others to get changes made and to do the custom branding or update the site specifically, just this particular article page for your event. You can control all that by leveraging channel pages as an option and a way to do that. So that's a great consideration, and because it can drive additional SEO value and it's a fixed place for your events to be hosted, a standard home where users can always come to, it's a great branding opportunity, particularly if you want to get longer-term sponsorships across multiple events. Channel pages, as with the custom ad feature, are available only currently to custom subscriptions. So again, if you're a self-serve customer and you're interested in this, then definitely reach out to us so we can talk to you. And the last area that we'll mention before jumping into any questions is around custom templates. So some of you may already be using custom templates and have worked with us to provide a custom template for your events before. A lot of times that's just for a very, very unique look and feel, and because we want the events to be laid out a certain way or match your site beyond the configuration options that you have built into the system. But it's also a very good opportunity to brand the event or all of your events or a series of events in a very specific way around sponsorship or monetization. So whether you're selling your own brand or whether you're trying to bring in a partner to drive revenue for how you're running your event, keep in mind that custom templates are an option and custom skins are an option for you to be able to make that look and feel very different and to also match it to the site without having to go through all the development effort that's behind an API. Custom skins are something that you can pay, custom templates rather, are something you can pay us to do. There is a charge for them, but our team will work with you and get that custom template developed, and then it will be in the system available for you to use for any of the events that you want moving forward. So it's a great opportunity, and particularly if you want to do multiple levels of branding and sponsorship around your event, it's a great way to do that. You can have your skin potentially branded, that title page, the footer, your host page, which could also live in a channel page, as well as pre-roll advertising. It provides a lot of options for you to get sponsorships and partnerships that can help monetize the use of your event, or as well as drive overall revenue for the site, or be included as a package with other sales that maybe your brand and ad sales teams are doing across the site that have it unique and bumped up for specific events. A few good examples there, and again, we already showed from a pre-roll standpoint what Entertainment Weekly was doing, but also included in their dashboard, there was a custom skin for their live chat event that was a part of that Oscars experience. So there's a lot that can be done with custom templates to make the events look different. And you should also note that in the configuration area that I showed earlier, in your appearance and settings, you should also take a look and note that there are several types of CoveritLive templates that you can use to change the look of your event. So whenever you're creating a new template, it's worth a look to check out several of the different types of skins that CoveritLive has, beyond just the default look and feel, because these can also potentially lend to your branding as well without having to go through the process or all the way to the realm of buying a custom skin. There's help here that shows examples of these, and they're a great way to change the look of your event and to get away from the custom or the default feel rather of CoveritLive, but still have a very unique experience that matches what your page layout, what your website, maybe what your branding is doing, but still all the CoveritLive functionality built in and without having to pay for additional work. So with that, hopefully you found some good news opportunities to monetize your CoveritLive events, found out about some features maybe that you didn't know existed in the product, or realized some new ways that you could use very simple things that are already there but can drive more value and more revenue through what your event is doing with CoveritLive. At this point, we'll entertain any questions that you may have had around either of any of these features or things that we have that we haven't talked about or have coming up. While we're looking at those questions and bringing those up, I'll take this opportunity to remind you about the next event, which will be Thursday, November 8th, same time. And at that time, we'll talk about getting the most out of your CoveritLive experience from a social standpoint. And the focus will be leveraging the Twitter features and capabilities we have, as well as showing you some of the new things that we've developed around Twitter. And similarly around Facebook, and promote the ability to use Facebook and Twitter to promote your events, as well as host them and use them as content sources and things like that as well. In addition to best practices and some of the new tools that we're working on around delivering the best content experience possible. So whether that's moderation or including rich media or engaging with polls and trivia and some of the new things that we've been working on, we'll go through some of that and talk about some of the things you can do today as well as what's coming up in the future. So we're excited about that and looking forward to showing off some of the new things that are coming up, and hope that you can join us for that. So at this point, I'll hand back to Spencer and see if we have any questions that have been submitted to the group.
Feel free to submit all of your questions through the chat feature in WebEx, and we'll be happy to get to those. We do have a few questions here so far. This question comes from Graham. What plans do you have for future monetization features within CoveritLive?
That's a really good question, and actually something I wanted to talk a little bit about when talking about the new pre-roll feature that we added a few months back. So currently, the ability to do that overlay and inject advertising only exists on a pre-roll, and only when somebody initially clicks into the event to get their live updates. We want to extend that feature in the future further to add the capability for you to either automatically time a takeover like that, where you could play a video or display ad or whatever it may be, or to also have that be able to be triggered by the panelist manually, much like you can do with just the embedded content in the stream, but have that function available to do the entire takeover of the window. We can see the automated being useful for long-running events or for tickers where the coverage is ongoing, but we can see the manual being useful for things like sporting events and such where you don't want to interrupt the action that's happening and don't want to create a frustrating user experience, but you have opportunities such as at quarters or halftime or timeouts where you could potentially run a 10 or 15-second pre-roll again, or rather not a pre-roll but an overlay again, and have that be a part of the monetization that you can do for your event. So the future is we want to extend that feature beyond just pre-roll and give you both manual and automated options around being able to do that.
Right. Our second question comes from Tyrone. Does CoveritLive track the clicks and impressions for the advertising on the pre-roll?
That's a really good question too. And just to be really clear, whenever you add that embed code for that iframe to whatever content you want us to pre-roll in front of the event, that content is coming from outside of the CoveritLive system. It's coming from your servers or maybe your ad server or whatever it may be. So CoveritLive doesn't have knowledge of the user's interaction of what happens with that particular advertisement. So if it's a display ad and they click on it, or it's a video and they click or do something, CoveritLive doesn't know that and can't detect that. So the only thing that we can track is that initial click that initiated the ad and initiated live updates. So we know how many times we serve that ad up based on the overall clicks into the event. But what we don't know is anything that the user clicked on or how many impressions that had explicitly beyond that. But all that data should be within your system since it's coming from your servers or within your ad provider if it's coming directly from them or a combination of the two. So you would still get to those metrics just like you would any other form of video advertising or branded advertising for your site, but CoveritLive won't have any explicit new information about that outside of the initial click.
And just a reminder, if you have any questions, contact us through the chat window in the WebEx. We do have a question that just came in. And are you planning to incorporate
Ad
takeovers through an ad server?
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently, we do not plan to integrate specifically to an ad server. The reason being that across all of our customers, they're using a number of different ad providers, and a lot of them are doing custom things. And again, not in every case is an ad. Sometimes those pre-rolls are bumpers, or they're introductions to the talent, which may be secured as a part of the relationship for the talent. So if it's a celebrity chat or an expert chat, then we've seen cases where they want to do an introduction of them, or maybe that's something that's going to work out with the agreement to get the talent to participate in the chat. So not all of the cases are strictly advertising, and there's so many different ad providers across all of our customer base that are using that we wouldn't be filling a lot of needs by trying to target specific ones, even some of the big ones. That being said, though, what we will continue to do is build it as flexible as possible so that we can integrate across multiple ad servers, and it can simply be an embed drop-in that can come from any number of different sources to support as many number of customers as possible. And for the future, I wouldn't rule that out completely for the future, but it's not on the immediate roadmap and not something we're focusing on for the reasons I described. But obviously, if we start to see consensus in a lot of customers that are honing in on particular ad providers, then it's definitely something we look at.
We do have one more question. This one comes from Herb. What types of ads are supported in the pre-roll?
It's a really good question as well, and kind of what to extend off of what I was speaking to earlier. Because we've essentially set it up to where it can be any content that is just ingested and run as a pre-roll in front of a live stream, any type of ad is supported. It could be video, it can be display, it can be dynamic, it could be flash, although I'd recommend staying away from flash just because so much of the consumption is done on iOS devices, tablet, iPad, iPhone, and flash isn't functional there, so that you would be missing out on some of your users potentially getting that advertising experience unless there's already a built-in fallback inside the ad network. But nonetheless, it is supported, and these advertising pre-rolls, I should have also mentioned, are supported across all the different types of implementations you can do for CoveritLive. So whether you embed the iframe in your article page, or whether you're using channel pages to serve up the event through our hosted, through the CoveritLive hosted channel pages, or using it to deploy the events directly in Facebook, any of those mechanisms will also show that serial advertising. So that monetization travels with it, and back to the original question, it can be any type of content that you want it to be that speaks to the audience and is supportive across the platforms that you're trying to reach with the event. So that could be plain text even. You could just have some static content that comes up on the page. And as I mentioned, plenty of other examples where it's not advertising, but maybe it's just an introduction, maybe it's just an animation, whatever it may be.
We have a two-part question from our friends at the Advocate in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Will there be a way to schedule ads in advance to play or rotate into that chat? And then the follow-up question is, will iTags be allowed to serve in the chat?
So, yes, a part of the roadmap, although it's not definitive in terms of when we would introduce this into a release just yet, but definitely part of the roadmap is the ability for you to schedule in advance and or rotate manually that content. I mentioned the overlay as an option, but also directly into the chat as well. So today it should be noted that you could use the API to programmatically and automatically inject content at any time into the chat, but obviously you would have to do some development work from another system to talk to our API and put that content in. We've had some customers do that, but it is a development effort. But on the roadmap, we do have the ability, or do have the item that we will work on and introduce in the future, to be able to schedule automated or have queued up for easy manual insertion of that content, whether it's an overlay or whether it's something you want put into the content stream. In terms of iTags being allowed to be served in the chat, I would need to look into that a little bit more because I don't have a great deal of detail in terms of what would necessarily be supported. In the chat content right now, it should be noted that you can embed just about anything except for JavaScript explicitly, and that's obviously to prevent causing problems or to prevent users even from being able to put in malicious or harmful content that then gets transferred to the event. But from the panelist side, from the producer side, you can embed video, you can embed dynamic content in HTML and those sort of things. So depending upon the nature of iTags specifically, it might already be supported, but I don't know if that's the case, so I'd have to look into that further. But we can follow up with that with you after.
All right. I do not believe we have any further questions. Obviously, you can contact us at any time if you do have questions following this event. And as I mentioned earlier, the archived version of this chat will be available on CoveritLive.com by tomorrow. We look forward to seeing you next time here at CoveritLive University on Thursday, November 8th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where we will go over how to get the most out of your CoveritLive experience. Thank you to Ben Schneider. We appreciate you spending some time with us today, and we'll see you again next time.